What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Aha, and we're back with some more Baby Aha, going back to one of the early demos. And we're going to listen to a demo from a track that did actually make it onto the album, though presumably this will be different in some way. And it's a very telling thing, having gone through the movie, and I was talking about this in my follow-up comments video. Now, as I return to this early demo material, I'm not just thinking about it in terms of sonic exploration and finding their sound and figuring out where the vocal level should be. It's also trying to make something hit, trying to make a track that will actually get played on the radio and be good enough to be a single for an album, and trying to bring an album together. And Magna talks about it in the film that he was particularly frustrated that after a year and a half they hadn't made much progress, even though it was obviously an exciting thing. You get signed to a label. So now as I return to this, I am thinking about that. I'm thinking about the human side of where they are at this point and trying to make things work, and knowing that this tune is one which will work, but maybe not in the form we hear now. These are all percolating thoughts in my mind. But yeah, I love the original version of the tune. I'm not sure what'll happen here. The original version of the tune was one of those, like maybe 15, 17 reactions in the Aha playlist, where initially they were fine, they were up for a month or something, and then suddenly YouTube retroactively blocked a number of them, and this track in the album version was one of them. So presumably this will be different enough that maybe it won't get blocked. Either way, if it does, I'll put it up on Patreon, and I'll make it public so that people who anyone can see it. Ultimately, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I was gonna say, I enjoy the dynamic synth bass of the original. I mentioned that was a very regular experience when going through their opening couple albums. And yeah, ultimately Morton's soaring voice, although he doesn't it's not into the stratosphere like on some tunes in the first few albums, but yeah, he definitely soars in some moments, and there's a couple vocalization parts that I enjoy. So let's hear an early demo version of Train of Thought, a tune that did make it onto their 1985 debut album Hunting High and Low, but which is presumably in an earlier stage of development here. There's one of those vocalizations. So yeah, different opening. Sort of more down-tempo rhythm. Sinking into my seat.
Likes to have a morning paper crossword solved.
It's a bit funkier than
the words come down, forwards, backwards, twisted round.
I heard that.
It doesn't matter, strangely now there's people around. He's looking at their faces, they won't stick in his mind. Grabs a pile of letters from a small suitcase, disappears into an office, it's another working day. And his thoughts are full of strangers, corridors of naked light. And his mind was full of reasons.
It's different than he hits it.
Subway home.
Definitely more of a funky,
distant radio whistling tunes that nobody knows. He says, hey,
feels like if you put Prince's voice in here, it wouldn't be out of place.
This Monday is the Tuesday from the week before.
There's a little laugh. Rendering. Maybe because I just know the original my immediate thought is I prefer it, but
thinking once there was a sea, but there never was a door. And his thoughts are full of
that hits in this version too.
and his eyes too numb to see. And nothing
That is funnier though. Slightly wild bamboo flute action.
And that heart is full of strangers, dodging on his train of
I feel like this is like Aha meets Japan. So yeah, a very different experience than the track that's on the album. Now, as objectively as possible, I think the version on the actual record, Hunting High and Low, is superior. I think part of it is also that what happens to me with a lot of things where I hear a particular version of something first, so then that gets ingrained in my head. Well, that's how that tune sounds. And then if you hear a different version of it, I suppose occasionally you might like, wow, this surpasses it. But in a lot of cases for me, it's like, it's cool, but that's not the real version of the tune. And it'll even happen where I'll hear, like with a classical symphony, one conductor, one orchestra perform it, and then if that's the first time I've ever heard the piece, well then that's the piece then. So then if I hear a version where parts are like notably slower or faster, it's like, oh, that sounds weird. But it doesn't necessarily sound weird, like, it's ultimately there's interpretation involved in the performance of classical music, as it relates to the score on the page. So sometimes I think just hearing some version of something first will make me most fond of that. So I don't know the degree to which I can separate that from, what I just heard. But I will say the bass line is different, more funky, but less of that groovy, like driving, dynamic 80s synth bass that really like lit my brain on fire when I began listening to their music. And it occurs to me, this would be what, the second reaction? I think the train of thought must have been the second reaction, because it's the second track on the original album, or the debut album. So presumably that was the case. It's crazy to think about, right? Like a year and a half. I was going to say an hour and a half ago. That was just an hour and a half ago. We've come so far. How do we do that? But my silliness and brain malfunctioning aside, yeah, I don't know if I like it as much as the version on the studio album. But again, you can hear them like trying to push Morton's vocals, and it really seems like they thought like those types of moments would be like, oh wow, that's crazy, like it would be something that would make them stand out. I think it was smart that eventually they scaled his delivery back in those moments to like a more true delivery, if you will. But either way, it just goes to show, like, his voice is not just incredible, but it's also versatile. He can like sink down low like he was doing. He can of course soar. He can also like, let the restrictor plate off and just like let it go in a way that is a bit wilder but still very ear-catching. So yeah, and again, it sounds like a band trying to find something, although the dire, or not dire, but the stress behind that is like more clear as I go through this now. So bottom line, once again, shout out to Sofia for sharing the bonus material from this. The deluxe version of this release. Shout out to all the other Aha family. I know this was one of the deep dives that hadn't yet restarted from before the holidays, so I appreciate the patience. As ever, I'm going through a million deep dives, and also trying to, a couple people mentioned as we got to the new year, and they, made a point to reach out to me and say, don't lose sight of the things that you like to do, like, classical reactions, techno reactions, punk rock reactions, and I like to do everything, but I am trying to make sure that, those don't get lost, because I'm just trying to keep up with all the different, like, deep dives I'm doing. So yeah, I appreciate the patience. I will always continue to appreciate patience as we move forward. But yeah, we'll keep going through these. We'll keep going through the remaining live stuff. There's, of course, some of the bootlegs, but I feel like, at some point I'll start going through the videos, and, maybe with those, I'll put them on Patreon first for a day or two and then put them over here. I'm always trying to think of ways that make it more enticing for people over on Patreon, but yeah, like, there's so much more, given that now I can do video reactions, even if I'm still always trying to sort things out and, make it better, both in terms of the audio and everything else. But yeah, we'll get through everything. I'll probably continue with these demos for a little bit now that I've gotten, at least some of the early story, and so now I have more context for this, so it seems like a good time to go through these. So in any case, let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.